You're listening to The Brand Compass, conversations to navigate your way to building a brand fit for purpose and poised for success. Here's your host, 𝗘𝗣𝗜𝗦𝗢𝗘.
Hello there, my friend, and welcome back. This is the place where we meet in the halls to chat about all the ways in which your personal brand meets the humans you serve. I'm 𝗘𝗣𝗜𝗦𝗢𝗘, your host on this conversational journey, and today I have a rest treat for you. You heard me right. I said rest. If you're anything like me, I spend a whole lot of time in my head and can be quite depleted by the end of the day or the week if I am not careful. In this episode, I wanted us to honestly talk about how we move through our working week, particularly as knowledge workers or subject matter experts who are highly dependent on their brains. So I am Gen X, so I don't know if what I'm about to say is really specific to my generation, but I was really brought up to always, in air quotation marks, work hard. And there was this not so subtle impression that looked like, or was kind of bled into us, that this meant you had to work like a demon consistently throughout the day and doing the 8 to 9 hour slog. And then, of course, having those little lunch breaks, but at your desk while you can continue to work. The other element weighed up underneath this is my belief in what work actually looks like. And usually, for me, that means delivering something for someone else. So what you might call, or what I call, billable time. However, over time, my views changed, but it probably took me about 10 years to realize that this wasn't healthy and that I wasn't happy. In case you resonate with any of that, I thought it would be good to have a conversation about rest, workflow, and what we need to know about our brains and our human stores of energy. Let me bring on my guest who specializes in educating her clients on this very subject. So Nikki 𝗧𝗛𝗜𝗦 is a mind, body, and breath coach who in the main works with female founders who are always on and need to slow down in order to speed up so that they can build sustainable business success, which sounds good to me. Nikki lives in Berkshire. Or Berkshire, do we say Berkshire? I think we say Berkshire. She's mum to a young son, and in her spare time, she likes to drink coffee in a relaxing cafe, to read a book, or simply people watch. Welcome, Nikki.
Welcome. Thank you so much for having me, 𝗘𝗣𝗜𝗦𝗢𝗑. And not so much of the young. He's almost 21. So, yeah.
I think he's young compared to us, is he not?
Yes, very true. Very true.
Oh, it's super to have you on, Nikki. I mean, I think we're going to just jump in because I've got so much I want to get into with you today. So maybe to help us kick off, could we maybe start with a definition of rest as you see it?
Yeah, and I'm going to borrow some brilliance from other people, actually.
We like
because
that.
I find that actually if there's already an amazing definition out there, like, why create my own?
Nice.
And there's a psychologist, Susie Redding, you may have heard of her. She's written a ton of books, and one of them is on the topic of rest. And she gives a definition which really resonated with me. The first time I read it, I was like, that is exactly what it is.
Nice.
And now I'm going to share this with you.
Okay.
So that you can hear it too. So she says that rest is any act that brings yourself back to balance, harmony, or a state of peace.
Nice.
Now, why I love that is because it is universal. Because what we're hearing there is rest is any act. So there's not one thing that is or isn't restful. And it's the act that we're doing brings us back to a state of harmony, brings us back to a kind of balance, brings us back to a state of peace. Now, what's restful and harmonious and balancing for me could be very chaotic for you. And that's fine. But it's what's restful to us. And that's why I like it, because it's something that we are doing or non-doing that is going to bring us back to a state where we can be like, okay, I'm going to reset, I'm going to refuel, I'm going to get back to a place where I feel this state of balance or harmony.
Nice. Oh, okay, so let's get to the heart of this topic now. So can you share a little bit about what you've noticed specifically with people who are knowledge workers, who spend a lot of time inside their own heads.
And I think often we, as you rightly said, we are walking around and we are thinking all the time, strategizing, planning our next moves, or planning what we need to do for our families or outside of our lives, whether it's our business or outside of our business. We're always thinking. The mind is always going. Even when we're sleeping, right, it's going. And often the body is just a taxi for the mind. We're just like going along our business and we're not tapping into the wisdom that is within our body. When I say we're not, that doesn't mean everybody. I just mean that what I see is typically we're not connected to our bodies. Our bodies are sometimes the source of much obsession. Like, how is it looking? What are we wearing? And all those things are very important. I'm not saying that they're not. But actually what we're sometimes not tuned into is the sensations, the messages that are non-verbal. They're non-verbal messages that the body is giving out, and we are so in our heads or so outside of ourselves that we're not actually connected, and we only hear the messages when they're so loud that we cannot not hear them. So imagine this, you're constantly moving, messages are being sent to you that you need to slow down, that you need to take a break, that you need to take some water, that you need to be warmer, but you just push through it. You push through it, and eventually the body finds a way of letting you know what's going on. And so that's what I see often, is this kind of not going into the body, pushing through often when we are tired, or when we do need to switch gears, when we need to take a pause, and we're just ignoring these kind of bodily signals because nobody's really told us or taught us how to read them, how to read the signals. In fact, we're taught, keep calm and carry on.
Yeah, to ignore them. Great British phrase that, isn't it? Keep calm and carry on. I think this really resonates with me a lot because I think I've been there. I can definitely remember when I was working in London for sure. And I know, thinking back on conversations with my mum, I think she was very much like that as well. It was just like work, ignore. Because I remember her telling me once that she'd gone throughout the whole day without having a bathroom break. Because she was like, one, I don't think she liked the bathroom because it was in an office building. But two, she's a bookkeeper, so it was like a busy period of time, and it was just like, I just got to get through it. 8 at a desk, so she'd sit at a desk from what I think was 8 until 4. So in South Africa, the hours are slightly different. Yeah, so I was like, I think probably as a youngster, that kind of like those kind of seeds get popped into your subconscious,
100%.
doesn't it?
Yeah, 100%.
Can we talk a little bit about the value of rest and recovery? And what I suspect is, we really need to understand how our nervous system works. I mean, I've been listening to a few experts, bits and pieces, but it's quite a tricky subject. But I'd love to know, just really high level, if you can explain to us how our nervous system actually works to basically give us warnings, which we're ignoring much of the time.
I think the first thing to say is, even at a simple level, often when we hear the word rest, we think of sleeping and napping and sitting on the sofa, and those can be restful, but that is not the only type of rest that we need. We need creative rest. We need rest for our senses, all the bright lights, the pings and the dings and the rings. We need mental rest. We need to find ways of doing that. So it's not just about, well, let me just take a nap or let me just go to sleep. That's useful too, and we need sleep, obviously, but it's about expanding our understanding of what it means to rest, and there are 7 different ways. So I thought I would just lead in with that, because sometimes I think it's, I haven't got time to nap, so I don't have time to rest in the day. And actually there are things that we can be doing that are micro moments of rest that give our body the reset button almost. So to answer your other question about like the nervous system and I guess the signals that get fed to us, told to us, there is this cycle that we have, and it's roughly like a 90-20 cycle. So every 90 minutes we get to a peak in our ability to be, super focused and be able to concentrate on an activity, Shelley, whether that's work or any other activity. And after that 90 minutes, that peak, we've reached the peak, we will start to dip. Our energy levels will start to dip. It's the body signaling that it's time for a rest. Now, for some people, it's not 90 minutes, it's 50 minutes, it's 40 minutes, it's whatever the cycle is. There is a cycle, there's a place where you get to a peak, and then it's downhill from there until you recover through rest. Now, the signals will be so subtle sometimes. It could be a change in our body temperature. It could be that we start to notice that we're sort of reading the same thing twice. It could be we start to notice that we're yawning a lot. It could be that we start to notice that our back or neck or shoulders, like physical symptoms. So it's about knowing what our own signals are and listening to them, but then also knowing that roughly around that 90-20, that 90 minutes, or often much before, we need to be scheduling those small breaks in. It doesn't even have to be 20 minutes. It can be 10 minutes, 5 minutes, if we're doing it regularly. But it's just this knowledge that our body has an activity and a rest cycle. And we can push through it with caffeine, with sugary drinks, with gotta get going, motivational affirmations. But the body is the body, and the body is not a machine. And I think as a business owner, if we understood that if we took those moments, we would be able to come back with a clearer mind. We'd be able to tap into the ability to make decisions more confidently. We'd be able to tap into our problem solving. Then we would know actually that there's a benefit to these 10 minutes that I've just taken to reset and rest.
I think, that's definitely important, and I do want to pick up on that a bit more just now. But I remember you saying something to me about we've also got to be really careful we don't get stuck in survival mode, right? And what that kind of looks and feels like, which is some of the things that you're lifting out of what you've said now. And I remember you talking to me about dorsal vagal shutdown, which sounds incredibly scary. Can you explain that a little bit? This survival mode and
yeah. So at a high level, we've got an autonomic nervous system that takes care of all of the things in our body that kind of keep us alive. So our breathing, our heart rate, our blood pressure, our urination, like digestion, all those things are being taken care of by an automatic kind of nervous system. And there are two main branches to that nervous system. One we lovingly call rest and digest, which is the parasympathetic nervous system. And the other we call fight and flight, which is the sympathetic nervous system. But it goes deeper than that, because what we've found is that where we are most open, where we feel safe and secure, hopeful, where we spot opportunities and choices, that is in a system that is called the ventral vagal. It's part of the parasympathetic nervous system, right? It's part of that, but that's where we feel ready for connection, open, available, present and grounded. Like, that's where we do our best work as business, as people who are leaders, who are running businesses. This is where we are connected, we're open, we're engaged. When we get to a point where we feel, where there's a sign that maybe that there's a threat, that there's a potential kind of like impending danger, whether it's real or whether it's perceived, we go into a state that is sometimes called the sympathetic, the fight and the flight, where we're mobilized. We want to move away or towards something. And in that state, you'll find that your heart rate will increase, all those things increase. And in the day-to-day part of our lives, we need that, because that's what we need to get the things done, or to keep us alive if we were in danger. But if we're not in danger and we've got a big pitch, a big presentation, we need to be there, because that's what's going to give us that extra bit of adrenaline, that extra bit of kind of va-va-voom, as I like to call it, to be able to do things. If we move out of that state, down the ladder, we go into what I said was dorsal vagal. This is lovingly called shutdown or collapse or freeze. And when we're here, our energy will be lower, We will feel a sense of stuckness, a sense of like, I don't even know how I'm going to get anything done. Everything seems really hard. Like moving, literally, if you're thinking about creating content, sending emails, following up with clients, those things that you normally do and breeze through, they will feel really hard. And so as a business owner, it's like when you're there, knowing you're there as soon as possible is really helpful, because there are things that you can do to move yourself out of that phase, out of that kind of collapsed, disconnected phase where you do feel like that. And all these states are all part of our system. And they all have protective benefits. Like sometimes we do need to collapse and shut away for our own safety. But that's not where we want to be if we're trying to get things done and create momentum in our business.
I think also...
So I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, no, I think it is. And you picked up on it a little bit, and I think this is... I suspect this affects our ability to really think rationally and reasonably about challenges that we're facing as professionals or business owners or senior leaders, especially when we're in this free state. So it's really useful if we can recognize our own triggers, if you like, and we'll go into that in a little bit. But I assume we also become quite detached from people and our environment. So maybe if we can talk about a little bit more about this impact on us as professionals and business owners trying to function in our environments, maybe if we can flesh out what that might look and feel like for people, maybe if they're recognizing that, they can start to see what, is going on for them. You mentioned before a bit about the ability to problem solve and creatively think. Is there anything else you can think about that people can kind of relate to or maybe recognize that's going on for them?
I think one of the things that's really helpful is when you understand that in the sympathetic state, so in this fight and flight, you will either be kind of moving towards this state of kind of like frustration or anger or rage. And obviously how that shows up for you might be different to how it shows up for me. If we are more in the flight where we're running away from something, we might feel things like fear and panic and anxiety and worry. So how that shows up for us is all uniquely different. But to be able to characterize, okay, I can sense that there's fear. I can sense that I'm feeling anxious or worried or concerned.
What's that about?
And then it's about, is this
yourself.
an appropriate response? I think that is the question. Because sometimes it is an appropriate response to feel that way.
Good
and it's
question.
just naming it is really helpful, and saying, in this moment, in this time, with these people, is how I'm responding, is this appropriate?
Nice.
And sometimes if you're looking at 5,000 emails and you're feeling like you're panicked and everything's about to end, maybe that's not appropriate. And it's just wondering, well, why am I feeling this way? And what can I do to get myself into that state where I'm in ventral vagal, where I'm feeling open, where I'm feeling safe, where I'm feeling secure?
Gosh, I already recognise a lot of the stuff, from when I was, younger as well, and experiencing in years gone by. And I think when you're younger, because you've got greater stores of energy, I'm making a leap here maybe, but we tend to overlook the damage we're doing to ourselves because we just had more energy. But I think now as I'm older, I'm feeling it a lot quicker. And the impact hits me pretty much immediately. Obviously, you get to know yourself as well, don't you? Know what triggers you as well. But I'm getting to recognise quicker now that I've let myself go in terms of rest and being kind to myself.
And I think, like, to answer your question about shutdown, one of the things that I can say personally for me, I notice if I am in a place where I'm seeing emails coming in or DMs coming in, and I'm marking it as unread to deal with later, but I actually do have the time to deal with it, but I'm telling myself I'll do that later. It's one of those signs that's personal to me that I know means that I'm disconnecting, that I'm withdrawing, that I'm like not wanting to face something that is actually quite an easy task for me to deal with. So everybody will have those unique triggers that are signs that they are in one of those states. That they are either in fight and flight, that they are in freeze, or that they are in this amazing like state of feeling open and grounded. Like, we don't want to only talk about the things that aren't great. How do we feel, Shelley, when we're feeling like in flow, when everything just feels easy and open?
Should we talk about glimmers then? Because I know
Yes.
we're talking. You
Yes,
were talking about.
I think I led you there.
I love those words, right? So should we talk about, so this is a bit part about putting guardrails in place, isn't it? To kind of make sure that we are being more aware of ourselves, make sure that as we get to know ourselves, we know, that whole BRAC, the basic rest activity cycle you were talking about, we're getting to know that is for ourselves. But also part of that is knowing what your triggers and your glimmers are, which I love that phrase. So should we work through the difference between the two? And then hopefully that will, for people, give them a little bit of a walk away from this going, oh, okay, now I know this, I know that, and I know this about myself, and I can put something in place. So
exactly. So let's start with glimmers, because we did just sort of touch on that.
Let's do positive.
I love the word
first.
glimmer.
Yeah, me too. The trolls
So-
that throw the glitter. I always think of the little, the trolls that throw the glitter. I was like, oh, that's what I think when I hear glimmer. Yeah, go.
So essentially, the job of our nervous system and the job of like our brain and everything is like to keep us safe, to keep us alive, right? And so any sense or a cue that there is a danger or a threat, it will either go into fight or flight, or it will go into this protective state. But the other side of that is when it doesn't feel that way, when it feels safe and secure. And so a glimmer is a little experience, a micro moment, I like to call it, where we feel that sense of all of the, how should I say it, all of the flavors of the ventral state, which is the openness, the connection, the feeling hopeful, feeling courageous, feeling confident, feeling that actually you can take on anything that, those times when you're just like, I can do this, this is good. And there might be certain experiences. You might be walking down your local area and you see like a bird, a robin on a tree, and it looks amazing. And you suddenly get this feeling of wonder and awe, and it's a really micro moment of joy. That glimmer is a way of reminding your system that, okay, there's some safety, I'm safe and secure, I can be hopeful, I can be joyful, I can feel good. And we can get glimmers in our day-to-day experiences of walking around our space, or it can be in our work, it can be in the things that we're doing, the clients that we're serving with. Right? And you may notice, wow, I suddenly felt like a warmth, I felt really excited, I felt so for all of us. And there might be certain objects, Shelley, that give us that feeling. A picture, it could be
yes,
it could be a picture, it could be an ornament, it could be a certain smell, like a certain fragrance.
So think about all the senses, really.
Think about all of the
glimmers.
senses. Yeah.
Nice.
So what music would we like to hear?
That's
It
a
could be
big
the
one
sound
for
of
me.
like water, or the sound of rain, or fire crackling, or white noise, brown noise, whatever is good for you. Exactly, really good point. Think about the senses. And when you're out and about, when we take the time to really notice and be in the present moment, we'll notice things that light us up, and those are glimmers. I think rather than overcomplicate it with a really complicated definition.
No, I think that's perfect.
Yeah.
Another thing, put your phone down so that you can actually recognise the glimmers, right, everybody?
Yes, exactly.
Although I have to say, golden retrievers on Instagram are one of my glimmers.
Oh, pandas for me.
Did they do it for you? Oh my God. Yeah. Otters and golden retrievers. I think those are my best animals.
Pandas eating bamboo. I'm like, I can go down a rabbit hole with that one.
Oh dear. I think and triggers we've talked about quite a bit, so I think we don't really need, glimmers are just the opposite to the triggers, right? So I don't think we need to really
I think the only thing that I would say about the triggers is, if you are paying attention to your thoughts, how you're feeling, what your actions are, you may notice that from one moment to the next, you may be feeling open and safe and secure and ready. And the next thing, you suddenly feel either the anxiety or the frustration or the collapse or the connection. What got you there? Yeah. That's the
Notice
thing.
it.
What were you doing beforehand? And what can you do? What works to get you out of that space? And the first thing is to acknowledge it.
Couldn't it?
Completely ruin your day.
So part of that is also, so you mentioned before micro breaks. So maybe if we give people a couple of examples of, because we said, look, it's not just about a nap. It could be a nap. I'm a napper. You know this about me. But micro breaks, what does that look? I mean, I was having this conversation with my husband this morning because he's having a huge amount of eye strain and he's struggling to play tennis in the evenings and things like that. Should we talk through a couple of examples of what a micro break could look like, even if it's in terms of length or activity of what it actually is?
And so, let's start with length, perhaps. Like a micro break could be anything from a couple of minutes up to 15, 20 minutes. I think anything longer than that, then obviously going into...
It's a break.
Yeah,
Not
a
a micro.
break. Yeah, exactly. So micro can literally be a minute or so, up to like 15 minutes, right? And 15 minutes is probably coming onto the longer end. And let's think about screens, right? So one of the ways that we can give our eyes a break, and I was talking about this recently, is to actually just look away, like I just did there. I look out into the distance. If you have a window, if you can step outside and look outside and gaze around, just slowly gaze around. And what you do is you are giving your eyes, because when we're in danger, if there's a real threat, your pupils will become dilated. It will be about to
focus.
How can you focus to keep you safe? If you're not in danger, you would gaze around and wander around the shops, wander around, look about. So it's almost like you are reminding your body that, okay, it's safe enough that I can gaze and wander and look around slowly. And it's just giving your eyes also that break from the bright light, the screens.
And then your nervous system's going, okay, actually, you're not in survival
She's okay.
mode. Calm down. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice.
So that's something that's really, really easy to do. Another thing that I find really helpful is, even in the middle of something that's quite intense, a hard conversation, to remind yourself to take some slower breathing. And
Nice.
a ways that I like to do that is actually just using the hands and going up and down on the fingers. So using the up motion for your inhale and the down motion down the finger, if you can see me, on the exhale. And what that does, and you can do that very discreetly by having your hands in your lap. Nobody knows that you're following along, assuming that you have access to both of your hands. You're able just to do that, right? And when you slowly breathe in through your nose and out through your nose, if you can, that is another signal of safety, because it's another way to activate that parasympathetic, that rest and digest part of your nervous system, by slowing down the breathing.
Doing it from your belly as opposed to your upper chest, your upper respiratory.
Yeah, exactly. And I think I would give another final way that I think is just really helpful, and this is super simple. Even just something as simple as like turning down the brightness in your phone, on your screen, turning off notifications, like that's a way to give a sensory kind of rest, because it can be quite overwhelming having these bright lights, lots of notifications popping up on your screens. Like these are really simple ways of taking some sensory rest. And I think to cap it all off, Shelley, we need to check in with ourselves a little bit more. And we can do this at a moment in our day that we're already doing something, like brushing our teeth or doing our facial routine or whatever you do in the mirror. And ask yourself, how am I and what do I need? What type of support do I need to give myself today? What does that look like? Is that maybe I need to phone a friend, have a conversation, have some social rest, connect with other people? Or do I need some time by myself? Starting to ask ourselves what we actually need and trusting the answer, I think, is a good sign, and not ignoring the fact that we haven't been to the toilet in like 5 hours, because we're almost abandoning ourselves every time we just ignore our own bodily signals. We're abandoning our own selves. We're like, oh, I don't matter. It doesn't matter. I'm going to push on. And as you said, we can get access to better cognitive thinking if we give ourselves that break.
Yeah, you can come back fresher. Yeah, definitely. Oh gosh, yeah. I think there's a lot people can take away from that, and there's a lot of like little tips there they can do. I think I've just about got my break cycle down in terms of how long I work and when I need a break. But I do find the type of work that I'm having, I have to break it down even more, because sometimes my level of thinking is so high that I need short, more breaks in between the chunks of thinking. But because I have to walk away and almost dream think in order to come back to finish the thing. But yeah, I've got to be better, I think, at my micro breaks. I'm good at my napping. I'm trying to do that because I do feel like I need that like 15, 20 minutes, especially if I have to do something in the evening and I'm a morning person and I'm up early and my brain, I only need 10 minutes to get awake and my brain's already on fire and I'm working. Whereas other people take a couple of hours to get going immediately, and then I already start by the afternoon. I have to have a hard stop at 3:00. But if I have to then go to a networking meeting or have a conversation, I know I need to have a 20-minute nap because I just don't have anything left by the end of the day.
Yeah. And this is it, building your own map. And that's what we need to be doing. Or this is what is really helpful for us, is to build a map of what do I think, feel and do when I'm in that ventral vagal? What do I think, feel and do when I'm in sympathetic fight and flight? What do I think, feel and do in dorsal? And be able to recognize that, and then having your tools to get yourself out of there if you need to.
Yeah, definitely, I think. Oh gosh, I've gotten so much from this conversation, Nikki, and we know we could carry on forever. I mean, you're really brilliant. I have to say, in terms of this subject and this topic, I think it's becoming more and more and more important. I think I'm hoping everybody's going to listen, and I know you're getting onto more podcasts as well. Your voice needs to be heard. So if anybody's listening, wants to work with you or find out where you are or how to follow your content, how can they find you?
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much also for really finding a home for this conversation. I feel really passionately about it. So to answer your question, I'm active on LinkedIn and Instagram, so definitely connect with me there. I'm sure, Shelley, you'll include the links
in the show
how
notes.
To do that. But actually, just, and thank you for the opportunity just to share kind of what I'm working on at the moment. But I'm working on this exact thing because I have created like an opportunity in just 4 weeks to actually build your own map as female founders, as women who are running their own businesses, to build your map so that you walk away knowing all of those things. You know what things look like for you in each of those 3 phases, and you have the tools to get you there. So then you know that you can create momentum in your business, but you're not going to be having to think about, am I going to be exhausted and burnt out?
Nice.
So get in touch with me.
Yeah.
That is something which I am talking about on both LinkedIn and talking about it on Instagram. So definitely get in touch with me right now, because I'm actually actively looking for women to support with this right now. And there's a super good deal, but I won't talk about that here. But definitely get in contact with me.
No, I'll get them to follow you, because also I don't know timings from when the episode actually goes out to what you're doing as well. But I think regardless, they need to follow you, because I love watching your content and listen to you when you're talking on Instagram as well. I think people can just learn by that. It's lovely. Thank you so much for joining me and sharing your insights, Nikki. I think it is an important message, and I know that anybody that's listening would have gained loads from just this one little half an hour conversation that we've had. And I'd really encourage people to link up with you and to go and follow you. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you for having me, Shelley.
And that's it for today, folks. Thank you so much for joining us. Did that give you a jolt to review how you work day to day and week to week? You know, promise me you're going to make a change today, whatever that is, even if it is to make that micro rest moment. Our energy stores are finite and they do need replenishing. And if you are not careful, the beauty and value that your clients are actually paying you for will wither and completely diminish in sparkle. We all know that life is mad and hectic, but we do need to remember that in the end we are human And we are here to share our gifts in the best way that serves our clients, but also feeds our reason for being here and doing the serving. If you are drained and do not know why you're doing what you're doing, I think that's your body telling you you need to stop, get some rest, recover, and come back. Who do you know who could do with hearing this conversation and Nikki's insights? Share this episode. You know you want to. Until next time, my friends, stay strong, rest, believe you have value, and make good brand decisions.
Thank you for listening to The Brand Compass. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to share it with your entrepreneurial friends and help them make good brand decisions. Until next time, let's keep the conversation going at 𝗘𝗣𝗜𝗦𝗢𝗘𝗟𝗟.